What is up, YouTube? This is Flex Factor. Brand new channel coming at you. It's going to be my first video. So we're going to do some fantasy football content. Please subscribe, like, share. The following video is a Yahoo Best Ball fantasy football draft that I did. The voiceover was recorded after. The screen recording was during the draft. If you like what you see, please share, comment, subscribe. Peace. All right, so here we are, Yahoo Best Ball 2025 Fantasy Football. We are starting out with the 6th overall pick. Jahmyr Gibbs, Saquon Barkley, Bijan Robinson, and Jamar Chase are off the board. Recording this voiceover after the fact. Want to target running backs in these first two rounds just because in the later rounds there are a plethora of wide receivers available. So yeah, gonna go ahead. Little bit of a reach here. I know Justin Jefferson falls to us there, but we're gonna go CMC just because the depth at wide receiver is a little bit better later on in the draft. So would be nice if we could get Devon Achane too. The way our second pick is looking out, if everything goes to plan, he may be available. In that top tier of running backs, you got Bijan Robinson, Saquon Barkley, Christian McCaffrey, and then outside of that, there's a little second tier, Genty, A-Chain, to include a few of those. To me, it's a no-brainer. If A-Chain was available, we were going to take him. So, best available here looks like Brian Thomas Jr. His ADP is 16. We can grab him here at the 15th overall pick. I don't hate it. Jonathan Taylor was weighing the options. If we're looking at that team later on in the year, I don't know if Anthony Richardson is going to lead that team to too many wins where they will have a positive game script to run the ball much. Jonathan Taylor historically has finished the year great, the tail end of the fantasy football season. He finished 1 and 5 respectively in 2023 and 2024 through the last 5 weeks. Tyreek Hill. So I've taken him in a couple other drafts in my third round. I think he's best available there. He's first round talent at a third round price tag. Coming back healthy, got the wrist surgery corrected. Tua coming back healthy. And you take a look at last year's stats, he was just under 1,000 and he missed significant time. So I think probably catches over 100 balls this year. If Tua can stay healthy, this will be a lethal offense. Yeah, so if we can snag Tyreek Hill here, this is a third rounder, but you really get first round talent. So in this format, Yahoo Best Ball, it is 3 starting wide receivers, 2 starting running backs, 1 flex position, a quarterback, and a tight end. Then you get 9 bench slots. Obviously, Best Ball Draft, they auto-generate the best lineup for you every week, and the highest scorer gets paid out on a weekly basis. This is definitely a higher stakes Best Ball Draft. 3-digit entry fee, I will say that, and keep it at that. But the stakes are definitely high. Looking like we could throw Alvin Kamara in the queue for later on. We got 1 running back spot already locked up. So if we can maybe grab him later on in the draft, that'll be good value. I think we have two certified wide receiver ones in Tyreek Hill and Brian Thomas Jr. So that's a steal. I mean, in my opinion, Tyreek Hill in the 26th spot. That's big. Um, Picks are flying off the board here. So Josh Allen off the board. Jackson Smith-Njigba off the board. Let's see if we can take a deeper dive. Okay, we see some Lions players down there. This is what I was talking about. Deep in the draft, a lot more wide receiver depth. Let's add Baker Mayfield to the queue. Jaden Reed, I was trying to think, is he the number one out there? I know they drafted that rookie Golden. Looks like they're going to have Golden, possibly. That's the buzz around him being the wide receiver one. I think Reed is still a good pickup. Um, a proven enough guy, right? Young, explosive, fast. Cue a couple guys for a quarterback spot here. This is tough. Garrett Wilson. I like McLaurin here. I just don't love his contract situation. I think it's great value here if you can get him as your fourth option. Um, I also think Garrett Wilson is probably the smartest selection. He's a wide receiver one, cut and clear. With Davante Adams out of there, that frees up a lot more targets for Garrett Wilson, someone who seemed like he might have been frustrated in the offense last year. A lot of balls being force fed to Davante Adams. So, new quarterback situation, obviously with Justin Fields. But I think he's a volume heavy wide receiver one. He's a strong route runner, good yards after catch ability. The only red flags to me, obviously, the quarterback volatility with Justin Fields. The Jets offense lacks, supporting talent. So maybe he's more susceptible to double teams. I think DK Metcalf probably going to be great this year, much like Davante Adams was force fed the ball last year, maybe in situations where he wasn't extremely open. DK Metcalf, a guy who can create a lot of separation, a guy who's still young, hasn't battled too many injuries. We'll put him aside for later. Another guy I definitely want to target maybe later on in the draft, Jalen Waddle, reliable guy. I think that if Tyreek Hill has any injury problems, Jalen Waddle is slingshotted to wide receiver one category. He's a quick separator, reliable target, had a career low in drops last year, and could benefit from increased opportunity with Jonnu Smith's targets voided. He went to Pittsburgh this year, so I think that frees up a lot more targets. Does he have an injury history, Jalen Waddle? Sure. Has had inconsistent target volume, but I think with Jonnu Smith leaving, maybe Tyreek Hill doesn't have a super healthy year. That's a good insurance policy for anyone who drafts Tyreek Hill. I'm not saying you need to draft Jalen Waddle if you draft Tyreek Hill, but it's a nice insurance policy. There have been plenty of games where Tua throws for 300 plus yards and Waddle and Hill both have a day. There's not a lot of offenses where you feel comfortable starting two wide receivers from the same team. I think Miami, I think Cincinnati. A couple years ago, you could have said San Francisco with Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk. Um, Maybe Minnesota last year. Let's take a look at running back. Yeah, I mean Alvin Kamara is there. Talked about a high number of checkdowns, huge PPR value, still strong in the receiving role, still elusive. Sure, he's aging. Maybe the lower touchdown upside is there. The offense is probably in decline. Need to work out a couple quarterback kinks. Taysom Hill's still there. He usually vultures a couple goal line carries. But Alvin Kamara is still Alvin Kamara at the end of the day. Had a huge bounce back year last year. Was that offense, playing from behind for a majority of the time last year? Sure. I think that, with the quarterback room the way it is, Could be a good safety valve to check down to. Alvin Kamara, volume, volume, volume. Um, so Christian McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara. So let's go grab Jalen Waddle. He's here for us. He will start in our flex spot most likely. Devontae Smith is definitely intriguing. I just don't think they pass the ball as much as Miami does this year. I think of these top four receivers, probably Miami is number one in passing the ball. Is DJ Moore the wide receiver one in Chicago? Probably, but Rome Odunze is still there. Baltimore, I don't know what's going on with that wide receiver room. They signed DeAndre Hopkins. They have Rashad Bateman. I'm not in love with Baltimore's wide receiver room. Um, Zay Flowers is a dog. I think he's young. He's explosive. He has good hands. But give me Jalen Waddle. Going heavy on Miami's offense this year. Take a look. What do we got left available for quarterbacks? Baker's still on the board. Threw for 4,000 last year. I think Baker threw for 4,500. Just nuts. And to think that they got that young rookie receiver coming up. Looks promising, in my opinion. So Sutton, DJ Moore, Joe Mixon off the board. Joe Mixon, another guy, injury problems, aging running back. I'm not sold on him being the day one starter because of injury, right? Nick Chubb, new addition to that Houston offense. David Montgomery still on the board here. As we talked about insurance policies earlier with Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, obviously David Montgomery, they fed him the ball on the goal line last year. He's their power back. He probably vultured a lot of touchdowns from Jahmyr Gibbs. If Jahmyr Gibbs goes down, David Montgomery stock is through the roof. I mean, the force fed on the goal line, the floor of the Detroit offense. I think, first and second downs owned by David Montgomery. Does not have a lot of, volume in the receiving game, but I think for a guy that's going to split time, he's probably my number one option. Um, Gibbs kind of took off second half of last year when Montgomery was hampered by an injury, but I still think he is the clear cut best available. So if we're looking at our team here, we got all three wide receiver slots filled out. We got a flex in Jalen Waddle and our first bench player in David Montgomery. CMC, easiest strength of schedule thus far. He's an elite dual threat running back. Obviously, Kyle Shanahan offense. He's extremely efficient. He gets the ball a ton. My only worries with McCaffrey, reoccurring injuries, workload could be limited. The end of last year, we saw a lot of work from Garendo and Mason due to injuries from McCaffrey. A lot of people aren't big on McCaffrey for those reasons alone. So we have all our starters in our first bench position filled out. To me, I mean, Aaron Jones is there. He's the starter. As we just talked about Jordan Mason before, they'll be splitting reps, but Aaron Jones is a starter. Still explosive, great pass catching ability. He has the lead role, although he will be splitting reps. Could it be a competition? Possibly. I think Aaron Jones probably owns a starting role. On the older side, right? So we see a trend with these running backs we've picked up. So McCaffrey, Kamara, Montgomery, and Aaron Jones. So probably on the latter half of their careers. But I think ultimately these guys still perform. We only need two of them to go off on any given week. And I think with McCaffrey being one of those top three running backs, that spot is pretty locked in. And then depending on the week, Maybe it's Kamara, maybe it's Montgomery, maybe it's Aaron Jones. We'll try and get some youth at running back later on in the draft just to diversify our portfolio a bit. I know, Quinshon Judkins out of Cleveland. A lot of upside with him. Obviously, he had some off-field issues. Again, Jaden Reed still on the board. We do need a little bit of wide receiver depth. Name to keep in mind: Jordan Addison. Um, Obviously, he is suspended this year, 3-game suspension. I think that quarterback situation in Minnesota isn't the most promising. You had a proven talent in Sam Darnold, and he had a career year. Obviously, when you're throwing to Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson, your life gets a little bit easier. I think that once Jordan Addison comes back from that suspension, you're going to get quality weeks out of him there. Um, we'll bookmark him for later. Also got Jay Herbo in the queue, Dak Prescott in the queue. In these best ball formats, I think it's important to bully people when necessary, right? Take a look at some of the teams. They're missing quarterbacks. People have a habit of only taking one quarterback in this format. So I think throwing those in the queue, taking a look at them later, could be big for us. Jordan Addison. Give me all the Jordan Addison I can get. At this reduced price tag, I'll take it. I mean, if he's coming in at our wide receiver 5, that's not bad at all. So we got 3 starters, 1 in the flex. He's our 5th wide receiver off the board. Okay, he's going to miss 3 weeks. Okay, he has a bye week. I think he's still going to give you quality weeks. He's probably still going to pop into our starting lineup more than you would expect. Um, this is boomer bust, right? Best ball, you focus on guys that can go off any given week. I'm really not looking for too much consistency. You win these best ball weeks with high ceilings. You don't win these best ball weeks with low floors. You win them with high ceilings. I think being that wide receiver 2 in Minnesota, the ball's going to come his way a lot. Um, they're going to double Justin Jefferson, right? There'll be games where Justin Jefferson gets blanketed, maybe, 7 targets for 3 receptions and 20 yards. I think it's important to have these backup guys, these Jalen Waddles, these Jordan Addisons. Also, equally as important, let's fill out the starting lineup. Baker Mayfield, give me all the Baker I can get. Mike Evans, tried and true, 1,000-yard seasons for the last decade almost now. Big red zone target. And with Chris Godwin resting up, healing from his injuries, I like taking Baker Mayfield here to work in with that rookie. And then once Godwin does eventually come back, he's going to run it up. I mean, that'll be a 3-headed beast like we've never seen before, not to mention Jalen McMillan. I mean, that kid caught, I think, 4 touchdowns in 2 weeks at the end of last year. He was a fantasy standout. Really didn't even have a lot of yardage on the year. Uh, there's Quinshon Judkins. We'll throw him in the queue. Stafford in the queue. Bateman in the queue. Bateman probably the wide receiver 2 there. Judkins maybe fighting for the starting role in Cleveland. Obviously, he may run into some problems. We'll throw Tua on there since we're kind of heavy on the Miami offense. I pay 0 attention to bye weeks. If you look, I just took 2 Miami players back to back on my bench, or Minnesota players on the bench there. So we got Aaron Jones. We also have 2 Miami players in Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. Um, as long as we can have someone in a starting position every given week, we don't have an empty slot, you're fine. These best ball leagues, a lot of variance week to week, guys. These later rounds, we're going to make sure all our bases are covered, make sure we have tight ends, make sure we have enough depth at our two main positions, which is wide receiver and running back. Godwin piquing my interest there now that we have Baker. Yeah, if we think about the beginning of last fantasy season, I mean, that was the best start of his career by far. Emeka Buka, he's coming up. That's the rookie I was talking about at Tampa. He could be big for them. Um, I mean, Baker throwing for 4,500 is just amazing. All right, Drake May off the board. Interesting. So, yeah, our bench looks like we got two running backs and a receiver. So let's talk about diversifying that portfolio. Kinshawn Judkins. Yeah, can't lie. This is probably a panic pick. Clock was ticking. Dak Prescott gonna throw the ball a ton this year. Um, Veteran consistency, great supporting cast, potential to rebuild around this new system with George Pickens. Maybe a little injury prone, maybe, perceived as overrated, inconsistent in the postseason. None of that matters to me when it comes to best ball. I got two guys locked up, tried and true in that quarterback spot in Baker and Dak, and I think those are both players that will be throwing the ball a bunch this year. Um, Probably Dak having an opportunity for comeback player of the year here. Um, Baker, fantastic year. Keeping Judkins in that queue. Take a look at Ayuk. What's his recovery timetable like? Not looking great. Referred to him as having a coach on the sideline, an extra coach in Brandon Ayuk. That's not what I want to hear, if I'm being completely honest. Cam Scattaboo off the board. Um, Tank Bigsby, maybe another guy splitting time. Rashad White, another guy splitting time. I think we need a little depth at receiver here. I don't hate Darnell Mooney. Went for just under 1,000 last year in Atlanta. The wide receiver two out there caught 64 balls. They think he's gonna have a little regression this year, but who knows? I think that Atlanta offense could surprise some people. Their defense was a little suspect. Led to them playing behind a bunch last year. I think that'll be an interesting quarterback room. Is it Penix? Is it Kirk Cousins? I mean, Kirk Cousins, 27.5 million. Will the Falcons trade him? Possibly. There's been some buzz around. Will he be traded to the Rams? Um, Stafford possibly on his way out the door, 37 years old. Some tight ends off the board. Looks like Jonnu Smith is probably best available. Most receptions, most reception yards last year for those remaining on the board. Receiving touchdowns at the tight end position, he also has the most there. Playing with Aaron Rodgers now. Wide receiver one out there is DK Metcalf. I touched on DK earlier in the video. I think that Jonnu Smith, I mean, the guy caught almost every ball thrown at him. Miami created a lot of opportunities for him last year. Important to note, Tyreek Hill did have significant time off last year. So, Jonnu Smith, potential red zone role. He has a lot of yards after catch potential. Veteran tight end. There is Fryermuth also in that offense. I think that he's a good insurance policy, Jonnu Smith, and then we might draft another tight end late just to cover all our bases. To me, tight ends in this format are not make or break. You can win weeks with 0 points from the tight end slot. Again, we're not really going for low. We're not going for high floors or low floors. We're going for high ceilings. I want that high playability where guys are going to be catching 2, 3 touchdowns a game. Take a look at our ADP here. Is anyone hanging out where they shouldn't be? Yeah, I don't hate it. Jonnu Smith. I mean, the guy was on track to probably catch 90 balls last year. They think there's going to be some regression in Jonnu's game going out to Pittsburgh. I don't know if Fryermuth is going to be the starter out there. If we take a look on the depth chart for right now, obviously Aaron Rodgers. Najee Harris has left the franchise. Wide receiver 1 is DK Metcalf. And for the running back position, Jalen Warren and Caleb Johnson. So our tight end 1 is Pat Fryermuth in that offense, but I think Jonnu Smith can ultimately take over that role. So through a couple more quarterbacks in our queue, maybe to look at later. As far as diversifying that running back position when it comes to age, Quinshon Judkins. Let's lock him in. 135th pick. Experts ranked him, one slot before at 134. I think that that is good value. Throw Gasecki in there. He could be one of those low ceiling guys that we lock in for next year. I'm not winning weeks or losing weeks based on the tight end position. We're kind of shooting for talent in the wide receiver and running back section. And then the tight end position, we're kind of punting in a sense. So again, if we look back at our team here, Brian Thomas, elite rookie year, huge upside, new coaching, so that gives him a boost. Some risks maybe to look at, expectations. Obviously, Travis Hunter joined that offense. Darnell Mooney, pretty consistent in his wide receiver 2 slot, efficient in production, locked in for targets. Maybe we round out with another wide receiver, maybe Bateman, maybe Wan'Dale Robinson. I mean, Brian Thomas Jr., 87 receptions, just under 1,300 yards, 10 touchdowns, third in the receiving yards. So that was big last year. I think he really carries top 10 upside as a mid second round pick. Many people project him as a top 5 fantasy wide receiver. So Liam Cohen, new head coordinator, values receiver versatility and will likely elevate his role in this adaptive offense. Trevor Lawrence, I think, only threw for 2,500 yards last year. So DeMarcus out in San Fran now. Interesting. We're going to go ahead and grab Bateman here. He's been decently consistent over the years in Baltimore. Can he have those big play days? Sure. He's an efficient route runner, good enough red zone threat, just had a contract extension. Mark Andrews out there, Isaiah Likely, Zay Flowers, DeAndre Hopkins. I don't know how much Hopkins gets involved in this offense early. Um, we saw him in a brief stint in Kansas City last year. Some success at the end of the fantasy playoffs and the NFL playoffs. So if we take a look at our tight end position here, we're going to close it out. I'm not taking more than two tight ends. Mike Gesicki, so that locks in a low ceiling guy in Gesicki and a high ceiling guy in Jonnu Smith. Both tight ends on the latter half of their career, but still high volume players and guys that can still score consistently on a week to week basis. Gesicki going to be in a very pass friendly offense with Joe Burrow. Obviously, he's going to have to share targets with Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Chase Brown gets involved in the passing game. So Gesicki, good enough for this late in the draft. How many more bench spots do we have? Eh, I don't hate it. We'll probably try and look to grab another quarterback just to bully them a little bit. Um, I did a best ball draft the other day. Drafted with the projection of second best team. Might do a video on that if this one gets enough love. Will not have the live draft, but can do a post draft breakdown and analysis. Started it off similarly as far as positions taken early in the draft. So it looks like our next pick is going to be 166th overall. This is where we're really just going for long shot plays, right? You're in the late rounds, you're going for these long shot plays with possible high ceilings, or you're looking to fill some bye week voids. Randall Cobb's on the Jets, still interesting. Wan'Dale Robinson kind of sticks out like a sore thumb to me. Um, he had 93 catches last year, just under 700 yards. That's insane. 93 catches, and he's available this late. That's value if I've ever seen it. I mean, are there quarterbacks out there? Sure. We have two quarterbacks already. We have elite wide receivers. I think that this is giving yourself an opportunity to have big playability with super late value. And let's take a look at our team here. So if we pop up to the team summary, Christian McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara, David Montgomery, Aaron Jones, Kinshawn Judkins. Go to our wide receiver group: Brian Thomas Jr., Tyreek Hill, Garrett Wilson, Jalen Waddle, Jordan Addison, Darnell Mooney, Rashad Bateman, Wan'Dale Robinson. So Wan'Dale Robinson, Jordan Addison, Jalen Waddle, those guys are great insurance policies. If Tyreek Hill ever goes down, if Justin Jefferson ever goes down or misses time, if Malik Neighbors ever goes down or misses time, those three guys get a huge uptick in volume. So we have Jalen Waddle, we have Jordan Addison, we have Wan'Dale Robinson. Those are great insurance policies. Rashad Bateman, probably also one of those guys that if Zay Flowers goes down, he'll get a huge uptick in volume. Um, our running back room, I think, looks pretty set. Very top heavy. older running back room, but I still like what we have there. Tight ends, definitely the weakest positional spot we have so far. Jonnu Smith, Mike Gesicki, not going to win you any weeks. Let's just be frank. Baker Mayfield and Dak Prescott, probably two quarterbacks that'll have a great opportunity to throw for over 4,000 yards this year. Um, Dallas going to be throwing the ball a lot this year. Really don't have the option to run the ball. The defense isn't great. Who knows if Micah Parsons is going to re-sign? Overall, I think we were ranked sixth projected points in this draft. So we got a fighting chance. I think you need to win 4 weeks in this Yahoo Best Ball to make back your entry fee, if memory serves me correct. There is also a prize at the end of the year. It's not just weekly payouts, but I'm fairly sure there's a prize at the end of the year, cash prize, for the team that scores the most points. So thanks for tuning in. Like, subscribe. Going to be putting out more fantasy football content. If you like what you see here, please throw me a like. It lets me know that you guys want to see more content like this. High stakes buy-in for this Yahoo Best Ball. Again, I said 3-digit buy-in. If this one gets enough positive feedback or enough engagement, I'm willing to make a video on my best team to date for Yahoo Best Ball. Um, Sneak peek, couple repeaters in there in McCaffrey and Tyreek Hill, but overall the team is a lot better. Drafted from the 7th spot. Couple guys fell to me that probably shouldn't have. So again, give me a like, comment, share the video if you found it interesting. I'm out.